A recent news story highlighted to us that the pandemic poses a specific set of challenges for young people that are trying to make that already tough transition from teenager to adulthood. How do they finish school? Where do they live? How can they find a job? How do they self-identify? Researchers say they are seeing patterns of isolation, anxiety, and depression among this specific age group. So we called in a consult, a house call, with Dr. Jeff Gardere, a clinical psychologist. Jeff, thanks for taking our call on this one, because you know we talked about our seniors, talked about our kids, talked about parents trying to raise kids, all sorts of folks. We haven't addressed this particular age group, and tell us why. What's going on at that stage in life? Not quite a teen anymore, not quite a full-fledged adult quite yet. What's typically happening in that age range?
I think the way we can look at it is 1 foot in and 1 foot out when it comes to being in the homes of their parents and really under the guidance of their parents. This is the time that they are individuating. They've learned as much as they feel that they are going to learn, and now they're ready to step into the world. But at the same time, they're not quite ready because they don't have the full emotional development.
Aha! I love the notion of individuating. That really makes sense. And I remember I went through it. I've seen family members go through it. It's such an important step to independence. So then you add on top of a growing trend, right? We've seen what the economy did a few years ago, pushing some young people back into the homes of their parents, right?
That's right.
But then add the pandemic onto it, and a year of the pandemic. What kind of things are we seeing? What are you and your colleagues seeing in this age group?
What we're seeing is that as much as these youngsters or these young adults want to leave, they can't leave. They can't leave because of social distancing, of course, and going out and finding apartments. They're doing this online learning, which is not really turning them on emotionally and academically. A lot of them feel, what's the point of even getting an education because of the mass unemployment that's out there? And they have, in some ways, I don't want to overstate it, but almost a love-hate relationship with the family, in that they want to get out, but they know at the same time the safest place for them to be is at home. So there's a lot of resentment there that they're having at not being with friends and being stuck at home instead of being out there and exploring the world as far as becoming an adult independently.
It's got to be discouraging, and I imagine that leads to some melancholy and worse.
That's right. And what we're seeing, record numbers of young people going to emergency rooms around issues of anxiety and panic disorders and some situational depression. And we tend to see this group, Michaela, as being so resilient. But what we're learning through this pandemic is that not only are they hurting like the rest of us as adults in this upside down world, but they're hurting even more because this is their time to shine, their time to fly usually, and they're being held down by the pandemic.
Okay, so help us identify what we might be seeing in our young people that are going through this. How might it present?
I talked about, I think what we're seeing is a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, a lot of frustration, not necessarily aimed at their parents, but about life. Their sleep cycles are upside down right now. They always weren't the best, but they're much, much worse because they're spending either too much time in bed and getting up late in the afternoon, or they're staying up all night long, right through to the day, and that's a real issue too. It tells us that they don't feel
sleep deprivation, not to be messed with. It's not healthy for a young mind. Developing is not good for any of us, by the way. So what's the point of intervention there? If you see this sort of the angst, the frustration, the quick temper, how can you, as an adult nearby, a loving, caring adult, sort of help in that moment?
Well, we've got to bring them aboard the caravan, right?
Okay.
And that means that a lot of us so-called experts like myself and inspirational people like you have been telling us, look, if you're at home, if you're under the thumb of this pandemic, set discipline in your home, recreate your life, keep everything positive. So we have to bring them along and let them know that they are a valued part of the family system.
Yep.
Eventually, they will be able to get out and fly. But in the meantime, let's all get up early. Let's all make sure that we have a routine that we can follow. Let's assign tasks. Let's be responsible for one another, all for one and one for all. And that positive mental energy, positive mental actions that we take, those are the things that keep them going too, because it's that attitude of getting things done that keeps them motivated.
And I suppose also validating and empathizing with the feelings too. I think kids need to know that they're not, their feelings aren't being ignored and that they're being heard. When does it get to a point, Jeff, that they do need to pursue some help or even head to an emergency room or see your physician? At what point do we need to be aware of that?
If they feel that they are out of control and there are no solutions for them, if we see that they're totally dysregulated with regard to that sleep that I talked about, and of course, any kind of talk of where they are saying that they may want to hurt themselves or they just don't see a tomorrow or see a future for themselves, all of those are clear indicators of a real depression, and of course, some of the anxiety attacks that we see that our kids are getting. So quite simply, if they're not getting better through our efforts, it's important that we hook them up with someone online, if you have to, who can help them as far as a professional counseling.
And just a good word for our parents here, because they might feel like, well, I don't want to be trying to tell my grown kid how to live and to do. This is when you do intervene when it comes to their own safety and well-being, right?
That's right. And by the way, it's not just about preaching at them, it's working with them. Okay, you're not feeling well. How can we come up with some solutions together to get you going and getting what I talked about earlier, that positive mental attitude to keep moving forward? Too many of our kids are stuck right now emotionally.
I am sending you a huge hug for this because I just have been really feeling for this group of kids. And I love that you've given us some tools, some checklists, things we can watch for and ways we can help. We got to wrap our arms around them. It's a tribe. It takes a village to raise these kids.
That's right.
Dr. Jeff, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And of course, you can check out his website, drjeffgardere.com. If you want more information, there's great resources there. Thank you, Jeff. Stay well.